Hello everyone, my name is Nicholas Jones. I'm a dancer from Ballet Canadien de Montreal in Place des Arts here in Montreal. And today I'm going to be talking about art on the African continent, and more specifically ballet in Kenya, and a personal quest of mine that I started around 2 years ago with my partner Julia in beginning a school in the excellence of arts for Kenya. And trying to work with the Kenyan government and local NGOs in bringing that vision around. Yeah. And this, I'm going to show you now, I'm going to let it do the talking, is a documentary we made. We did a gala last year in Nairobi with children from the slums there. And we did workshops with the kids for a good week, training them and also training teachers there on the ground, so that when we leave, they have the tools by which they can teach the children ballet, modern dance, contemporary, and so on and so forth.
I was really interested in seeing how ballet can exist in a country that is so underdeveloped, and I really wanted to support the fact that ballet does exist, and that despite all of these barriers, developmental barriers, in Nairobi, they still value the arts enough that there's a school where kids go. And a lot of the times, you know, more developed, richer countries, their priority is on helping developing countries getting things like basic infrastructure, basic healthcare, basic, you know, things that absolutely are essential, and we need that. But I also believe that the arts are essential, and so anytime that we're putting arts up there as just as important as getting in highways and, you know, feeding like the human spirit, instead of just saying, all right, here are some staple crops, here's just, you know, the bare minimum for life, because I don't think that life is living if all you're doing is surviving and subsisting like day to day, and the arts can really bring you out of that, that level of just survival. And so that's why I wanted to come and kind of grow this culture of arts and that human spirit that ballet can provide, and provided in my life and can provide in other people's lives.
There's joy in my heart, these two. Then we'll have our ballet kids, then we'll have your show. And then at the end, we thought we'd bring everybody on, not to dance because it's going to be too complicated to bring them in with you. So when you finish, the finale will be, all the kids will come on stage and you'll all sing. You can learn it. Our theme song, which is Neon Nation Aways a Power, which means if you show me how, the verse is all, yes, Neon Nation, Neon Nation, yeah, and then Neon Nation Aways a Power, which means if you show me how, I can learn. Because all they've seen is they've seen it inherent, they've never had to do.
Because I wanted to distract you. It takes a bit of difference.
Yeah.
You know, as a dancer, sometimes you feel like it's hard, you don't make a lot of money and you don't have maybe that big of reach to influence people, so you want to change the world and you think it's hard. But in this case, we've been able to use what we've been trained in and what we love to directly impact kids who might otherwise never get to experience ballet. And it's really fun to see ballet touch children who don't have as much as we do, but they have the same joy when they're dancing that we do, and that's really special. And I'm really glad, to be able to spend my time doing that. A lot of times over the summer, you can guest, you can find a gig where you can just earn some money, or you can just take the summer off and relax and don't do anything. But I think for me, the opportunity to come here came about, and I couldn't think of a better way to spend my time over the summer, given there was a chance to have this impact on the children.
Uma das coisas que eu queria mostrar, ou pelo menos poder transmitir, assim, vindo do Brasil, de um país que também é terceiro país, mundial, no nível, eu entendo às vezes, você pensar que as coisas não são possíveis, que as coisas não podem acontecer, né? E eu venho de uma cidade pequena, de uma família que não tem muito dinheiro, e fazer balé, dançar na Europa era uma coisa muito distante, era um sonho assim muito grande.
On the side. Okay, not on top of it.
No. They're
Okay.
Estando aqui hoje, vindo da Europa para trabalhar na África num projeto social, sendo que eu venho do Brasil, é possível sim. Às vezes a gente acha que não e que as circunstâncias não são boas, que a gente não vai conseguir, mas se pode sim. E é isso que eu queria, poder compartilhar com as pessoas daqui, sabe? Que por mais que as coisas estejam complicadas, estejam difíceis, que é possível sim. E muito das coisas que eu conquistei foi, assim, ajudando um ao outro, sabe? Porque a gente não tem condições, né? Eu recebi muita ajuda, então é uma coisa que também, que eu acho que é legal, é bacana você comentar com as outras pessoas, essa pessoa me ajudou, eu estou aqui por causa dessas pessoas, então você, não sei, faz com que as pessoas parem para pensar e falar assim, poxa, as pessoas podem ajudar umas às outras, sabe? E fazer um futuro melhor.
Garilla motion, smoke machine, joka linakuja, skuma wiki green. Garilla motion, linaleta chakula kutoka mashambani ningeweza ningeenda. Gari la moshi, smoke machine. Joka linakuja, sukuma wiki green. Gari la moshi linaleta chakula kutoka mashambani, ningeweza ningeenda. Where are you going? Where have you been? Can you take me with you, smoke machine? Where are you going? Where have you been? Can you take me with you, smoke machine?
Yo creo que se conoce cada vez más y ahora cuando hagamos la gala yo espero y tengo la fe de que vamos a tener mucho público y cada vez que alguien nos ve con los niños siempre están interesados y quieren saber qué es lo que estamos haciendo, entonces yo creo que es algo que sí que tiene mucho interés aquí en Kenia y creo que sí que hay un futuro en el ballet porque los niños se les ve con muchas ganas y incluso los padres siempre están interesados en traerlos y yo creo que sí que hay un futuro. Va a necesitar varios años porque todo conlleva su tiempo, pero yo creo que sí que es posible.
Where are you going? Where have you been? Can you take me with you, smoke machine? Where are you going? Where have you been? Can you take me with you, smoke machine? Smoke machine, smoke machine, smoke machine, smoke machine, smoke machine.
Wow. Twende kazi.
It'll be good.
Let me know when you're around in Germany, yeah?
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah. Write to me when you're back and safe trip. But don't get not good enough for it, and it's not worth it.
I'll just prolong it till tomorrow or something, or till the next day.
Yeah.
See if you're up for that.
Yeah, it's been beautiful, man. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe that's both. And yeah, let me know next year when you're around.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd like to come after for a bit.
So that was an amazing time, and we'll be doing the same thing this year and next year and the year after that and so on and so forth. The goal is to, it's baby steps right now and we're kind of building it like Lego block. This year Huli and I are going for 18 days, so it's a lot longer. I'm going to be working with the children for a lot longer period of time, and also with the teachers, like giving them the ins and outs of the technique of ballet, essentially so that when we're not there, they can continue working with the kids. The NGO that we work with is called Anno Africa, and she, the woman who started it in memory of her son, who passed away sadly, and it's been going 15 years now, and it's not just ballet that they do, but also circus, modern dance, dramatic writing, drama, music, and their own traditional dance forms as well, of course. When we're there, they enjoy very much to teach us and try and teach us their own form of dance, and we have a great time struggling with that. The coordination is quite something. What else can I say about that? The next goal would be a festival, and the end goal is, like I said, to create a school based around the arts in its totality. And I'm looking at like a 5 to 10 year sort of time period to get that done. And we'll see how that goes. Now I'm going to talk to you guys about a brief history of ballet. I say brief. You'll decide that. Ballet was first witnessed and developed out of the Italian Renaissance courts and spread out into France under the guidance of Catherine de' Medici. She was the Queen of France from 1547 to 59. Dancers were mostly noble amateurs that did it as a hobby, and it didn't become seen as a professional occupation until later. French court ballet became more advanced under Louis XIV, and he in fact founded the world's first school called Académie Royale de Danse in 1661 to start training the first court dancers and teachers to establish the technique of ballet more precisely. The current Paris Opera and Palais Garnier was in fact born out of this school in Paris, and they still exist today, so it's a 450-year-old establishment. Jean-Baptiste Lully and Pierre Beauchamp. Lully was the director and Beauchamp was the first ballet master of the Paris Opera. Both helped enormously in developing ballet much further, and you could say are the first real pioneers of ballet. They created the first 5 positions in ballet that are essential foundations of any ballet technique, still today. By 1681, the first ballet dancers took to the stage having been trained by the school, and ballet had arrived professionally in Europe. One such dancer that was produced was a guy who was named Auguste Vestris. He was a remarkable dancer for the time and a huge influence for many later choreographers and dancers that would come around through Europe to watch him dance at the Paris Opera. Another notable addition from the Italian ballet circles, though much later on, in 1850 to 1928, was Mr. Enrico Cicchetti. He is a very important person in the Italian ballet history, for he developed the port de bras, the arms, to the degree that we find them today. He also put a heavy emphasis on the way to perform ballet and balance and poise and posture. He brought about the main aesthetics of ballet, and it is thanks to him mostly what we see today as classical ballet. We are all taught as dancers Cicchetti method in ballet. It doesn't matter where you come from in the world. Then ballet stretched out into other parts of Europe. A notable mention is Denmark. I'm not going to go through all of them, but Denmark was a notable mention, and it was around 1771 up until today. It was then that the Royal Danish Ballet was founded, and many dancers and choreographers were produced by the school. In Denmark, around 1830 to 48, one such person by the name of Auguste Bournonville started to develop his own technique and repertoire to add to the already rich French repertoires that had been developed in Paris. He changed the arms to add more lift to the jumps and started to add more beating with the legs while airborne. He also developed such wonderful ballets called Napoli, La Sylphide, and La Conservatoire, to name a few. Then, of course, the Russians. Russia's journey with ballet began also in the 1700s, 1731 to be precise, under the guidance and tutelage of Jean-Baptiste Landais, another Frenchman. The French were basically responsible for teaching ballet throughout Europe, like that's a given. He had come from Paris, as most did during the time. The Empress Anna had invited him to the court to start teaching, and he developed the first school in Russia, the Imperial School. Ballet continued to develop over the centuries under this great school and branched out into other cities in Russia outside of St. Petersburg. Over these years, the 2 great ballet theatres called the Bolshoi Ballet in Moscow and the Kirov/Mariinsky Ballet, they changed between those 2 names, in St. Petersburg were founded and are still around to this day, giving incredible performances world over. Then in 1902, Sir Diaghilev, with his Ballet Russe, left Russia for Paris to show the rest of Europe what the Russians had to offer. Anna Pavlova was the star of the Ballet Russe, and her Dying Swan variation is still performed around the world today. The Ballet Russe was very well received in Paris, and they became stars instantly. Russians have a very rich tradition with ballet, and they have developed their own technique under the guidance of Agrippina Vaganova. The Vaganova technique focuses again on big jumps, and in general there is a particular detail to the technique which focuses on the coordination of the arms and legs together. That's how they get their height. She also set out the proper timing for learning each and every step in the ballet technique and puts a heavy focus on strength, flexibility and endurance. It is deeper and requires the dancer to use his plie to the absolute maximum. You can attain maximum height of jump with Vaganova technique, whereas with the French technique there is more emphasis on petit battement and the little jumps, but fast and precise with lightning reactions change direction. The French also use something called épaulement, where they have this shouldering action going on, and it's all about posture and looking divine, you could say. Then, after this, like in the 20th century, it spread out into the USA. In 1933, a man by the name of George Balanchine left Russia for the USA. He emigrated, and with a man called Lincoln Kirstein, founded the School of American Ballet. He, with his technique that had been taught in Russia, went about mixing this with what he had seen on Broadway and in Hollywood, and developed what is today called neoclassical technique, or simply Balanchine technique. It requires much crossing of the legs, and the arms are very large and accentuated. The style of dance is quite loud and impressive, and the dancers must perform with a big sense of showtime about them. You can definitely see the Broadway elements in Balanchine's ballets, some of which are called Theme and Variation, Symphony in C, and Apollo. And then, after this, nowadays, ballet has stretched far and wide out into Asia, in Japan, China, Philippines, Australia, New Zealand, and also South America and Africa. Notable places are Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Egypt, Chile, South Africa, to name a few. In fact, out of South Africa came a famous choreographer called John Cranko, whom I have had the pleasure to perform many of his ballets in Stuttgart Ballet, such as Romeo and Juliet, The Taming of the Shrew, Onegin, and he did his own Swan Lake as well. He was a simply magnificent man with a beautiful vision of ballet and how to construct ballets. So as you can see, ballet has continued to evolve even out into other forms of dance also, such as contemporary dance and modern dance. There really is no stopping something as beautiful as ballet, and it doesn't matter what nation or culture. It appears many people, like with great classical music, have a wish to see the great classical ballets. Many children leave a ballet theatre or an opera house with the dream of one day gracing the stage and learning the techniques by which these dancers appear to levitate momentarily as they glide and jump across the stage, telling their stories of tragedy and glory. Now it will make its full entrance and final hurrah on the African continent, and we would like to begin to build the first major national art school in Kenya in cohesion with Kenyan government, to give the children there the hope and optimism to be themselves great dancers, artists of all kinds, though not just ballet, but other dance forms, classical painting, classical composition and musical instruments, drama and poetry, and so on. Now I'm going to talk about the Belt and Road Initiative and how this grand infrastructure scheme can help Africa, and more precisely, Kenya, realize its cultural dreams in art. I will be talking a lot about the SGR and going through some photos regarding this grand project. So, in Kenya, I don't know if any of you have heard about the SGR. It's a train that was recently just, back in July 2017, it was completed, actually 9 months early by the Chinese, well, not the Chinese government, but actually I'm going to bring that up here. So this is an Excel sheet that I made myself of all the this is just transport infrastructure projects in Africa that I've managed to track so far. I've got 163, as you can see, 24 complete. Yeah. So let's focus on Kenya, and this is the one that I'm focusing on. It's 472 kilometers long. Like I said, was done in July 17, and was built by CCC, which is the China Civil Construction Company or something. It cost $3.4 billion. They use 50,000 employees locally. Already in its first year of operation, it made $100 million. That's just direct money made. But the Kenyan government has already equated that within its first year of operation, it added about 1.5 to 1.7% of GDP. Now that's just the first year. And of course, like when I was there, Julie and I got the pleasure to ride on it. And of course, I went around the train and asked people what they thought about it. everybody was overwhelmed by it, as you can imagine. Kenya hasn't had something like this built for 120 years. Since the British were there, we brought a train that was called the Lunatic Express. It was called that for obvious reasons. Things didn't go so well. A lot of people died. And the way it was built under the terms of slavery and colonialism. Yeah, we won't go into that too much, but yeah. But when I was on the train, I spoke to the train stewards, and I was interested to kind of find out like what they're getting paid and if the work conditions are good, and so on and so forth. So they're being paid 60,000 Kenya shilling, which is about €1,000 a month, for 15 days of work, and the other 15 days they're free. Either they can stay in Mombasa or Nairobi, so they can take a quick holiday on the beach if they like. The SGR train has a first-class restaurant, which was very, very cheap, and the food was of an excellent quality. The security was brilliant. There are about, multiple checks before you get on the train. There's about 4 where you have to pass through the first military check. The dogs, they sniff you and everything and so on. But they're taking absolute care of it. Like, it's very well and systematically set out. The train staff were wonderfully friendly. Toilets, you can even get hot water on the train to fill up your own tea for free, something which you won't get in England. Now, to compare to that, the place where I was staying in Kenya, the security guard, he was making 6,000 to 8,500 Kenya shillings a month, which is about €200 a month. And he was having to provide for his 4 kids off of that and his wife, and obviously was struggling. So you can see right there what a major infrastructure project like this brings about in opportunities for people who get to work on this train. And bear in mind that a lot of people that get to work on the train are women. All the drivers of the train are women, in fact. I think it's 13 women. The Chinese government, they took these women to China for a 9-month course in driving trains. And not only that, they got to learn Chinese. And there's a wonderful documentary which was done by Junhua, and they, you will actually see that the girl, the main driver, she speaks pretty fluent Chinese, and she's remarkable. So I want to, poverty reduction. How do we, this is obviously one of the best ways that you can bring about poverty reduction. You build a project, you employ 20,000, 50,000 people, and that's just one. So there we have 23. They're doing cable car lines, they're doing seaports, they're doing bridges, highways, so on and so forth, and that's just Kenya. Then you've got Ethiopia, Egypt. I think in total here we have 19 countries? Oh, no. 24. Togo is my last one. So, of course, as you can see, some countries are doing more than others. Nigeria actually has the most, 27. And already in Nigeria, you've got 7 that are complete. So there's no stopping the Nigerians. They have moved very fast. They just this year, actually, Nigeria, they completed 4 airports within the year, just like that. And go on YouTube, have a look at them. They're incredible, brand new, shining airports. These are things that Africans are just realizing now. Like, they've never had these kind of opportunities before. The British, when we were there, we didn't provide them with these opportunities. We were just taking, like as Matt showed with the pie chart earlier, with the mining, we were just taking the resources out of the country. There was no payback at all. What the Chinese are actually doing is offering Africa for the first time, like the potential to not simply just build them these things, but give them the tools, because there is a lot of transfer of technology as well, and there's a lot of training. Whenever I've been there, what I'm seeing is like you'll have 50 Kenyan guys alongside a road, all dressed in the kit, and you've got one Chinese instructor, and he's literally teaching them, like maybe it's the most basic thing, but he's teaching them how to do it, so that when he goes, they can do all of these things themselves. Like, they don't need to rely on outside nations ever again. So once it's been done, these people are going to build the nation themselves. Now I want to just quickly read out a speech here from Xi. If you give me one moment, because I lost it. Here we are. Let us build a China-Africa community with a shared future that enjoys cultural prosperity. Both China and Africa are proud of our splendid civilizations, and we are both ready to make greater contributions to promoting cultural diversity in the world. By enhancing exchanges, mutual learning, and harmonious coexistence of our civilizations, we will inject lasting impetus into invigorating our civilizations and cultures, enriching our artistic creations, and provide rich cultural nourishment for China-Africa cooperation. I want to pay attention to enriching our artistic creations and provide rich cultural nourishment for China-Africa cooperation. I wouldn't just say China-Africa, I'd say, like in our case, for example, what we're doing, like, it's ballet is a European creation out of the Golden Renaissance, right? So by going there and working with the children, you're giving them the tools by which they can then, once they know how to do ballet, they know. Then they don't need me, a Western man, to teach them anymore. And if I can teach the teachers there as well how to teach ballet, even better yet, because they can then formulate their own private schools or public schools, whatever it may be, and teach whoever that they want freely, and, you know, knowledge is free. Like, you just get in a studio with a child, you begin with the very basics of ballet, like you start with your plie and your tendu and your grand battement and so on and so forth. And these children, they are, like any children, hungry for education, hungry to know things. I often sit around tables with them and show them videos of Carlos Acosta, who is a great Cuban dancer, or I show them the Russian dancers or the British dancers and so on and so forth, just to make the point to them as well, like, everybody can do it, like anybody and everybody can do it. Doesn't matter what skin color you are, doesn't matter boy or girl. Actually, it's essential that it is boy and girl, given that one of the elements of ballet is pas de deux. So this cultural exchange between us, and vice versa, them teaching me about their dance, teaches me something new and fresh about dance in general and art in general. We spend our day, every day, coordinating ourselves, and then they will show me something, and I'm just like, oh, okay, go again. And I'll make them repeat it like 10 times until they get tired, and then I'll give it a go and absolutely be awful at it, and then they'll all be on the floor laughing at us, and, you know, you feel you become a student as well, and the roles are changed all the time, no matter how old they are, whether they're 5, 10, 15, they have so much to teach me as well. So now I want to finish with another subject related to all of this, and that is racism and its elimination worldwide using none other than art and intellect. And that is in fact the lack of these two aspects in peoples of developing nations that has kept racism around up until today, I feel. It is not, as the liberal Western system state, purely about good and bad individuals that propagate it. I must ask the question, where do we in this room think racism really stems from? Inequality? Then what kind? Wealth. But what kind? Is it money, intellect, culture, history, or all of those? For me, two in particular stand out and play the largest role, and they are intellect and culture. I will make the link today, and I would like to show people that it is culture and intellect and levels of culture and intellect that have brought about racism. So let's think about it first. Of course, people are not racist towards Europeans or Americans. Why would they? We had the Renaissance, we had the great Athenian culture, we had the Peace of Faiths, a time when Christianity and Islam reached a peace that lasted some 70 years or so. We had Charlemagne, we had Joan of Arc, we had the Industrial Revolution, and many great inventions and discoveries arise out of that. We had Shakespeare, Shelley, Schiller, Dickens, Goethe, and of course, Plato and Socrates, to name just a few. If Africa had had these contexts to fall back on, would anyone dare speak or think of Africa and Africans as they do? Well, the truth is, as Christine has shown us today, they do. It's only that history, for the past 500 or 600 years of history, have been dominated by Europe and the Americas mostly. And so it has led to a unilateral world order dominated by the West and Western values. But this is all changing now, with the rise of Asia, and thereon after the rise of Africa. Now, not that this was necessarily the intention all along, and many great leaders tried to change the course of history. Take Franklin D. Roosevelt. He tried and spoke very fondly of doing great things in Africa. In his son's book, Elliot D. Roosevelt, it is noted that when they flew over the Sahara together, Franklin saw great potential in this dry, deserted land and its huge expanse. He imagined what it had been like in the past, and what it could be like today with all its richness and wealth below ground, and on top. The man despised empire, and was a thorn in the side of the British Empire. In fact, he and Winston Churchill, contrary to popular belief, did not see eye to eye on more than one occasion, and Roosevelt often told Churchill that the British Empire had to change its ways and give independence to the multiple colonies of the empire world over, and bring about also economic nourishment to these nations. So the reason today Western man is and can be racist, even if unintended, is because there is an inequality worldwide in levels of literacy and education, so to speak. And that is where the problem lies, I feel. In the inequality of our minds as people on this planet. If a man is illiterate, then a literate man will of course see the illiterate as below him. Why, of course, a man or woman who speaks, reads and writes is a man or woman who can educate themselves to whichever standard they so choose, whereas a man or woman without this is incapable of such things. So let's change that all. Let's make it our goal in this time and age that all men and women on this planet become literate, and after that masters of their industry or art. Let's give the continent of Africa the foundational tools to go out and realize their grandest and most beautiful dreams from mankind, so that they can build and bring about the future that they wish and set the path for themselves. They are, in fact, the fastest growing people on this planet and the youngest. By 2050, 1 in 4 people on this beautiful planet will be African. We should all note that, and we should all want to help make sure that they are a liberated people with great artists, dancers, musicians, scientists, writers, inventors, and so on. That's what Western liberals don't get. So many still live in darkness while they lark on about rights that they don't understand, for they haven't studied history well enough about how those rights came to be. They think it's their right to do whatever they want and play video games and destroy their brains with drugs, sex, and rock and roll culture. There is no responsibility in people today. I say fight for the rights of others who deserve better and have so little. That is the best right we have. We can be that difference for people who are suffering by simply lending a hand and pulling them up with us. That's equality. Racism will be dead when the first African arrives on the moon, better yet Mars. Or when you have the first Kenya National Space Association, the new Silk Space Road is what it should be called. The same applies to a great African or great Kenyan art school, and that's what we're going to fight to build. Thank you. So yeah, I wanted to show you guys some pictures of the SGR. Okay, right at the beginning. Hang on. Alright, well, I'll just go through. So yeah, this is the SGR in Kenya.
Can you explain the acronym? What it means? Or SGR?
Standard Gauge Railway.
So it's this one, and then there's another terminus in what was the other city?
Mombasa. Yeah, and it will go. I'll show you a map in a few moments' time. It will pop up somewhere. That's inside the station. Bear in mind, like even the stations, they haven't been filled with food courts yet or anything like this. There's no coffee places there yet. But of course, when it is, that's again indirect economy which is going to be created. So that $100 million does not include anything other than what is made off of the train itself. So this is a map where you can see. So this is the first phase. This is done. The second phase is going to be done in September this year, and it will be part of that phase includes a 5-kilometer tunnel called the Ngong Tunnel. It's the second longest tunnel of its kind on the African continent. It will go on to Lake Victoria, Kisumu, which has a lot of trade already taking place on it. And then to the border here with Uganda, going on to Kampala. Kampala have also just signed an agreement with the Chinese government to build their link here. Then it will go down into Rwanda, Kigali here, and link up with what Christine was talking about earlier, the Tazara rail in Tanzania, which is this one here, which we can't see. But yeah, you're looking at a kind of U. But it will also link up with, this is here, Lamu. This is a huge port is being built there as well. And this route here, going on to Sudan, is part of a corridor called Lapset, which is a huge development plan with I think 4 countries like Ethiopia, Sudan, South and North, and Kenya. And yeah, that's also already in motion. I'll go on with some pictures. So there you get an idea. It's a bit bigger. Dar es Salaam. So the Tazara actually comes this way into Zambia here. Yeah.
Hey, quick question.
Yeah.
In your work, is there what's your take on high-speed rail in Africa?
Yeah, actually, we're talking about it in the African Union, I don't know, 4 days ago. And a guy called Raila Odinga from Kenya, he's the current head of the union, and he was saying about high-speed rail, and they were kind of talking about the fluctuation in the costs of the different rail schemes that are being built from country to country. And they were kind of trying to figure out a timeline of when they're going to have high-speed rail in on the African continent. Now that's already happened. Morocco, with TGV, they have a line from let me get this right, Tangier to Kenitra, and it will go on to Casablanca and Marrakesh, and yeah, down. So all the way through Morocco. Now, how that will link up, yeah, actually I have another picture, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But they were saying something between 5 and 10 years before they would have more high-speed rail basically coming. They don't have such a clear plan right now. I think the plan right now is literally just to build the lines themselves, because that's the thing about the SGR. All these lines can very quickly be upgraded to high speed. So it's not going to be like, once they've built them, it's not going to be a far stretch away to turn them into high speed. I think it's literally just a matter of changing the train. As you can see on this train here, on this track here, you have on the side here these square blocks. So this is where the future electricity pylons will go. So the Chinese, they've already built everything, like, you know, thinking ahead. And because when the Kenyans were figuring out the costs of the project, they didn't have the money to put the electricity in already, and because of electricity production in Kenya, they noticed that they had a shortfall of electricity, so it would have been say dodgy to pull electricity from other places to power the train. So right now they're using diesel, but that's really not going to be long. I mean, they said like 18 months before it becomes electric. So, yeah. That's Nairobi terminus. It's really impressive, guys. I mean, like, yeah, when I was there, it's like, it's a spaceship. This is economy. So yeah, $6 for a 500-kilometer journey. That's business class. It's not a huge difference.
Right.
Yeah, got a bit more space. The seats turn. No. That's Mombasa terminus.
It kind of reminds me of like when they were building during American Western expansion, they would build the town halls far away from wherever people had already settled because they knew that that's where the city would develop.
Right.
So this kind of idea of like envisioning into the future.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure, like, look at this. I mean, this is Voi Station. Voi is a traditional place to take safari in Kenya. So a lot of people will, like, you can see around the surrounding area, there's not much. But there will be. Yeah. A matter of years, I would say. And every year I go back, like, things change, like, really fast. In Mali. So it's not just the, you know, Mombasa station and Nairobi, like, the stations in between are... So this is the second phase, which I found yesterday night, and I was like, oh, I'm going to chuck that in there. So it's another station going on past Nairobi.
These like city-to-city rails, are those also going to be connected to then like intercity kind of transportation?
Yeah. So the government recently actually just signed a deal within the government to rehabilitate the Nairobi Intercity line. So I think that includes like 28 stations. Right now, only 1% of Nairobi's population uses the Intercity rail line, and they want to bring that up to like 20-25%.
Right.
So, can't remember how much money they were talking. Around $30 million to rehabilitate all the stations within Nairobi. That one's really in the middle of nowhere. I mean, some of them, they're still connecting to roads and stuff. It's quite amazing.
But it just shows you, like, even though it's in the middle of nowhere, the fact that they put so much work into these behemoth structures indicates a view of, they obviously envision a much bigger city building program, right?
Yeah.
Of habitation and action going on in these areas.
Yeah.
So, they're thinking ahead.
And it was so cool, like when they first opened it, they had like photography competitions, and there were all these young Kenyan photographers going from station to station, taking like their best, like, it was exciting stuff.
If you look at old pictures of Pont Champlain, it used to just like end up in farmlands and swamps. There was nothing there.
Yeah, just empty.
Now it's all housing and commercial.
So, this is what I want to show you. This is the ticket prices. So I can quickly do a quick... so Nairobi to Mombasa is 700 shillings, which is $9.30 Canadian. And if we do like...
How many is that?
What?
How many that's you said 400?
472.
When we do the conversion rate, like I know you said how much the people working on the train are making, and then you compared it to like, I think it was somebody working in a market or something like that, security guard. Like, and in line with this thinking that like obviously down the road there's going to be more economic growth, so more people will be able to afford it. But at this point, it's not that like, unless you could afford it, 700 shillings. You said it was $8, but if people are making $1 a day in terms of...
Yeah, I mean, that's within the slums.
Yeah.
So in the slums, you've got like 2 million people. It's the largest slum in the world. I mean, that's debatable. But Kenya has actually, like Nairobi has a huge middle class.
Right.
And the trains are around 97% full. So when I rode on it, like, it's crazy, like it's frantic. I mean, actually, when you're getting on the train, like it's a lot of people. Like, I think in their first year of operations, they transported around 250,000 people between Mombasa and Nairobi. So, yeah, it's a lot. And it's just one line, right? Like, it's, how many trains are doing a day? Like, 4. So, it's just 4 a day. One of them is express, so it stops at all those major stations that you see. And then another one is like more regional, so it stops at like 30 different stops or something. And you can see like the different prices if you would get out at Voi or Tito Ande or so on and so forth.
You want to build some more questions?
Oh, that's Ethiopia, by the way. The light rail, that was also built by China, but that's for another day. I mean, actually, that report... What is it? Yeah, the network has already transported more than 29 million people in just 9 months.